Okay, greetings from Ann Arbor. For those of you, especially if you had me first semester and paid attention, you know that my son was born with a heart defect, and so he's required some heart surgeries here the first year of life, and he had his next scheduled surgery. It was supposed to be last week, got postponed to this morning, so I'll be back in Ann Arbor here probably for the rest of the semester here for probably another 2 or 3 weeks. I will work remotely when I can. Assignments, a lot of them have been getting posted early. Reviews and a couple other things are getting wrapped up. I got a few tweaks on those, and they'll get posted probably later today. And then only a couple more videos. We have 2 lessons left. We'll do them on Wednesday and Thursday. And other than that, it's just kind of some review and getting ready for exams and finals. So I gave you a list of 10 problems. And I think the majority of them were actually on homework assignments, but like these, for example, this is exactly what's going to be asked on your quiz tomorrow. So what kind of things do we look for? We look for if it's a whole number or a fraction. We look for whether or not it's negative or positive. And that tells you everything that you really need. So it says, how does the value of A affect each function of the graph? So we did our rules up here with narrower, wider, regular U, upside down U. So there's a couple of those that will be on the test. I believe there's, or on your quiz, and I guess your test next week. So there's a couple of those. If you go to the next page, these were a couple of your homework assignments. I would immediately hop over to Desmos. So I have 3x squared already entered. And then I can go to my table. And here are my values. 12, 3, 0, 3, and 12. And come back over here. Sorry, there's going to be frequent pausing on these videos. A lot of in and out in the waiting room. I tried to find a corner to hide in, but anyway, so you fill it in. Just I just copy that from Desmos. 12, 3, 0, 3, 12. Okay, and then sketch your graph. I think the key point is obviously going to be here. And then it's a really narrow graph, so it's going to go right off your page pretty quickly. So where's my vertex? It says 0, 0. My axis of symmetry is where it can reflect over a line. We have a minimum point. My domain, which is my possible x values, that's these ones here. That's all real numbers. Or you can do negative infinity to infinity. Okay, my range is anything my y value needs to be greater than or equal to 0. That's one way to do it. Or you can do your interval notation and do our smallest number is 0, and actually it's a square bracket because it includes 0, and it goes all the way to infinity. So I'll fix this. Square bracket. Where is it increasing? Well, it increases starting just after 0, because at 0, 0 it's not doing anything. And it increases all the way to infinity. And where does it decrease? Well, it decreases starting at negative infinity and goes all the way to 0. You could do either of those intervals. So if I did the first one, we're talking about these increasing and decreasing intervals, we're talking about x. So we could say 0 less than x less than or equal to infinity as well. So either way, but this is probably the easiest one to do. So now if I change this, oh, and sorry, I told you to do 2 and 3, and I just did number 1. The only reason I said do 2 and 3, I think on the quiz, you have a fraction on there, which would just make it wider. But actually, all of these answers up here work down here. None of them change. If I would have shifted it and done like a +2, then it would have been different. But I didn't. So same difference, tomato, tomato. So the thing you need to watch here is this negative 2x squared. So now I come over here and switch this to negative 2x squared. You can see now that it goes upside down. Negative 8, negative 2 are my numbers. Negative 8, negative 2, 0, negative 2, negative 8. So I got dots there and there. And then it goes off the page. Same thing, vertex still at 0, 0. Axis of symmetry is at x equals 0. Max or min, we have a maximum point. And again, that would be at your vertex point. Your domains, all real numbers. Your range is anything less than or equal to 0. Where does it increase? It starts increasing at negative infinity and it increases all the way to 0. Where does it decrease? So where are my numbers decreasing? Well, that's at 0 and it goes all the way to infinity. That's the confusing one when it's negative because it's backwards compared to how you would describe things up there. Okay, so now we're on to page 8. So I said do 6, 7, and 8. How does the value of A affect each of these? So my A is 1/3, so it makes it wider. The negative 5 makes it, we're going to be narrower. And we got an upside down U. And then you also got to pay attention, like when you start getting into decimals, that's still bigger than 1. This one's less than 1. So again, narrower. On page 11, I talked about doing number 2, which was a part of our notes. And it says, what's the vertex and axis of symmetry? Does it open up or down? Does the graph have a maximum or minimum? So these are all the things that you could plug in. You just got to be really careful. So I'm going to pause this and make sure this is entered correctly. So I have this entire graph entered in. Negative 2, x plus 1 squared minus 5. And you can see it's an upside down U. And since there's a dot there, I can hover right over it and it'll tell me what that point is. I got my negative 1, negative 5. Well, remember, where did those come from? That came from here, the negative 1 and the negative 5. Your quiz also may ask you to describe the transformation. I think that comes up on the last two. But what did we do on this one? Well, we shifted 1 spot left, and we shifted 5 spots down. Remember this negative h, and My K, that's a K there, really bad K. My K is positive. So that's where it gets a little tricky, because you notice this is +1, but what was my H? My H is actually -1. Okay, because that tells me it shifts one spot left. So it's always the opposite of what sign you see here, because the negative sign is a part of the equation. We know that it opens down, would have a maximum point. Those are things we already covered. So now we're on page 14. And I told you to do 8 and 10, which actually number 10 goes on to page 15. But it says the parent function's graph. It says identify A, H, and K. So in this case, my A doesn't exist, so my A is 1. My H is +2, and my K is 0. So I could actually graph this just based on that if I wanted, because I know that it's going to shift just 2 spots to the right. And if you wanted to confirm that, you could do x minus, and you see how it already shifted over, 2. But then I got to come in front here and delete some of the other things that were from the previous problem. And you can see there, it shifted 2 spots to the right. So my U is right here. State the vertex and the axis of symmetry. Describe the transformation. So my transformation is just 2 spots to the right. The vertex is 2, 0. And my axis of symmetry is x equals 2. Same thing here. We have our x +2 +1. You can see that now this point is now at -2, -1. So I come back over here. I didn't have an A because there's nothing in front here. Be careful in case there's one on the quiz, but my A equals 1. My H equals -2. My K equals 1. I think it asks, so we go -2, 1. Got my graph there. So now I have my vertex at -2, 1. My axis of symmetry at x equals -2. I think that covered everything it asked for. Oh, it says describe the transformation. So when you describe your transformation, 2 spots left, 1 spot up. And I wanted to point out, if there was a negative, so over here on this one, you would also have to say either flipped or upside down. Okay, and looks like you got a little bonus of me rambling today, and my apologies. I did these ones and they weren't even on your suggested review. So you get a double dose of those because those actually showed up. So I'm back to page 6 if you wanted to scroll back to page 6 and pause this video. Sorry I did those and explained that, but I thought it was good to explain them there, I guess. The reason I did that is because all the definitions and stuff are up here. But the one thing I did not cover was 8 and 9 on page 6. I had my list scratched down here and went right past those. So it says, widest to narrowest without graphing. I'm not going to lie. You could use Desmos if you needed to check these out. But what is going to be the widest? The widest is going to be the smallest fraction or decimal. The narrowest is just going to be your largest number bigger than 1. So that goes back to these definitions up here. The larger we are compared to 0, the narrower it is. So if we're going to line these up to wrap up this video, I've already done this one because you got to be careful, because you got to know that 2/3 is approximately 0.66. So my widest one is my smallest decimal. And then I work my way through all the way to my biggest number that's greater than 1. So here, it doesn't matter on number 9 whether or not they're negative or positive. So my widest one would be my smallest number, so that would be 3x squared, and then 4x squared, and then negative 5x squared, and then last, my biggest number is the narrowest, the negative 7x squared. So if you can do all these problems without issue, you will be just fine on the quiz. I will post the quiz link later today for anyone that is ready to get a head start on it. Have a great day.